We're talking about Derek, more plates, more dates. The title's pretty clear. The guy has downsized, and conveniently enough, he just released a video about The Rock downsizing. Now, interestingly enough, just to touch on that topic a little bit, The Rock had actually responded to the allegations that everyone was making about his downsizing, saying that he said it's 100% not true, and it's just him shifting a little bit for movies, I guess, which is kind of bullshit. We already went over this. You don't just lose lean mass exclusively without it's really drastic, crazy things happening in the background, but that is that. Derek made a video about it, and he got obliterated in his own comment section, and I thought it was interesting, and we should talk a little bit about what might be going on and, why the hell Derek has shrunk so much. Now, if you don't know who Derek is, he has been making videos for the past 10 years on YouTube, and, those got to be pretty successful at a certain point. He was obviously a very prolific person in the space of male enhancement, PEDs, and things of that nature. He started to post 2 videos a day at one point, trying to boost his algorithmic presence. And he talked about a lot of things that got a ton of attention and got viral. A lot of those videos in specific would be his natty or not videos. Basically, talking about somebody's natty status as a professional athlete or an influencer or a celebrity. Now, since Derek had made his, claim to fame, he basically started multiple companies, supplement companies, an HRT clinic, and some more. These companies have an extremely sketchy past, some of which I have insider information on, but we're just going to leave that out of this video. But just understand, the supplement business, a little bit questionable. The HRT business, a little bit questionable. But anywho, what I do think is the fact that he has shrunk so much is really interesting. Now, Derek 100% is on HRT, and you would assume that just means he's gonna blow up if he's using an assortment of different hormones to maintain his health and body mass, that he's just going to be jacked, and everyone assumes just the TRT is at a basal level going to keep you bigger than everybody else. Now, when we look at Derek's old posts and even his channel pictures, the ones that he uses to, display himself online, he's obviously a lot bigger back then. And it's a no shit Sherlock kind of moment because he was blasting tons of androgens. Now, he isn't at all that big, and people are calling it out in the comments section as he comes back every, several months to make a video about a supplement that he's selling. And in this particular Rock video, he got obliterated in the comments by people literally quoting this exact issue. For example, Derek needs to do a breakdown on Derek. Derek has significantly downsized as well. Rip boulder shoulders Derek. Jesus, remember that Derek had Death Star delts? Is Derek not covering his own muscle loss? So it's noticeable for a lot of other people. Obviously, when he's commenting about other people shrinking, it's going to be more apparent because it's just the internet for you. People do this. I went through a massive shrinking phase. I've talked about it many times before. You can go back 8 months into this channel and see the transition just within my face. I'll go through kind of what happened to me, but also transparently speak about why Derek has probably shrunk so much, because I actually can relate to this man in many, many ways in the same kind of timeline of events as he has actually. And it's very simple. At a certain point, when you're taking steroids, you have a good time and you think it's great. And then you start noticing that the things that you're doing outside of taking steroids, like outside of the benefits you get, which would be mainly just the hour and a half you're spending in the gym, and outside of that, you're pretty much, there's mute benefits, Girls don't think it's impressive. Girls don't think it's cool. You get hair loss, acne, lots of different kind of things that are maybe minute to a lot of people, but as a man in his young 20s, it's kind of a big deal. You start experiencing skin aging and blowing up of the face and all of these different side effects. Not necessarily awesome stuff to be going through. Simultaneously, if you're someone like myself or Derek or really any other influencer that you're probably listening to, you have other things, side projects or businesses that you're working on pretty passionately. And so that 1.5, 2 hours in the gym that you're spending every day, it doesn't really justify using steroids, both in a way of creating a sort of restriction from your full work capacity as a person really focused on being hyper productive in some specific unique thing like YouTube or a business model, which we have some really cool ones coming out that I think you guys will love, specifically for those men out there struggling with hair and stuff like that. Funny enough, but we'll talk about that later. You really work hard on these things, and steroids do not make it easy to have a clear mind. You get overly horny, which sucks because all you think about is that. You get wildly, just genuine, horrible, perturbed brain fog. Like you can't focus on anything for very long. You get excessively hungry most of the time, and definitely a little bit more reactive to situations. It's just not productive. And so that compiled with the fact that you're not getting anything that you really want out of life taking steroids, i.e. money or fame or, passions that are developing because of steroids. So you pull back, you stop. Now, initially, that's not the biggest thing in the world. I've stopped, but when I did stop initially, I didn't really lose that much muscle. I was like 260 pounds at my peak weight, and I dropped down to like 240-ish pounds, which is a big deal, but it wasn't like massive in terms of my weight loss. What really stopped me, what really shrunk me down massively was eating. I just didn't care to eat as much anymore. And I was somebody that had to eat, chronically 5,000 calories a day, 4,500 calories a day to even like incrementally gain weight or hold weight even. And as soon as I stopped that, the weight just kept peeling off. And it got to a point where I was actually okay with that because I liked eating 2 to 3 times a day. I liked maybe, having more of a normal balance in my life as opposed to this bodybuilding lifestyle, this physique maxing lifestyle. And in fact, it was something that people actually appealed to more. Having a more aesthetic face was something that women appealed to more. Having a fuller hairline was something that women appealed to more. Having a body that was comparable to someone who is natty, but on the very top end of a natty physique, that was appealing to more people. So it all in all had a ton of benefits for me. And the other benefit was that I got to have way more focus and motivation and drive towards the things that I was really interested in, YouTube, business, etc., and not going to the gym and trying to improve my physique and being chronically focused, hyper fixated to a fault on my physique. Now, Derek is very similar, most likely, in the sense that he started all of these businesses. He stopped blasting the Sazul, and as a byproduct of the businesses, his productivity being increased, or at least work demand being increased, stopped, considering how much food he's eating on a daily basis. These two things, being hypocaloric and not having androgenic support to contribute to the conservation of lean mass, you're going to shrink radically, like fast as well, right? Not only that, but historically for me, for diabolical amount of time, would just not inject testosterone. I need testosterone. I ran steroids for a long time. I need some form of testosterone replacement therapy. But I also I just couldn't be bothered to inject anything. I just couldn't be bothered. I'm sick of injections. I don't want to do it. Also, a side effect that not many guys talk about is that you do have to inject a lot of shit for the rest of your life in this path, but I just don't like it. So I would just, go 3-4 weeks without injecting anything, and then I'd be like, oh shit, I need to inject something. I had to do a mild injection of like 150 milligrams of testosterone, which, if basically not a lot, and then go again for 3 weeks without injecting anything. I'd gotten to a better point now, but this is kind of like the rhythm that I was in because I was so detracted from the heavy abuse and the constant fixation on injections that I was in when I was really in the mix. So Derek has shrunk down. It's likely a byproduct of contributing his focus and energy into other things, as people do. They tend to shift and wane with their goals and desires, and those can reflect in terms of their physical appearance. Now, what's interesting is, and I think is really important to state, is that this shrinking is not a bad thing. A lower BMI is generally not going to be a bad thing. Having a lesser lean mass, but an equally less fat mass is generally not a bad thing. This is more of a path to longevity. In nature and mammals specifically, we tend to see this actually correlate pretty well. Now, this is for many different reasons, specifically in humans, right? In dogs too, you can actually tend to see this. Certain mammals like the bowhead whale, for example, can live up to 200 years. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one example. Elephants live like 70 years or something. But in humans specifically, this happens due to a lot of different molecular signaling pathways, growth hormone, IGF-1 signaling, causing telomere shortening, which is an important feature of this all. Increased cellular metabolic demand, more cells, more cell turnover, greater demand on a cardiovascular system to pump blood at a higher pressure more frequently, so a higher heart rate, more friction in the system. We are, at the end of the day, just like a car. We're a mechanical device that has a finite amount of heartbeats, a finite amount of passes that blood can have through an artery. That friction over time is going to cause wear and tear. That metabolic activity as you get bigger does cause oxidative stress. It causes metabolic byproducts. Those do have to be cleared by other organs. Those organs then get taxed by having to clear those metabolic byproducts. And in humans, we see that shorter people and lighter people people live the longest, not taller people and not heavier people, because those two things correlate greater with oxidative stress, everything I just mentioned. So yes, you know, Derek has shrunk down, I've shrunk down, but the byproduct of that is generally a longer life and trying to fix a lot of the things that had happened earlier in our lives, right? So in my early 20s, blasting steroids, I was not healthy objectively. I did damage that is probably going to affect me in my older ages. That is, you know, a consequence I have to live with, but it doesn't mean that it's something that is just permanently going to, you know, fixate itself in my life and I can do nothing to prevent or elongate my life and the quality of it now. I can, and that's kind of at least what I am doing actively almost every day, is thinking about ways that I can prolong the enrichment of my health span, not necessarily lifespan. So while Derek has a lot of skewed things with his career online, he kind of dropped YouTube, which I think was a big mistake. Even if it was just like an infrequent video every week or something like that, it would have been massive for him, especially at 2 million subscribers. I think that him getting smaller is definitely being poked at quite a bit by Greg Doucette and a lot of other YouTubers and a lot of other influencers, but it is just genuinely him being healthier. You know, at the end of the day, it's him being healthy. And I think that above all else should be appreciated, because not many guys are willing to downsize to get healthier. I've talked about this before, but you create an ego around who you are physically. And so if you walk into a room and everybody's like,
that's fucking Johnny. You know, there's Johnny. He's the fucking big guy. You know, there's Johnny. Look at his fucking shoulders.
It's like now Johnny is going to associate being the big guy. So when he walks in the fucking room and everybody's like,
there's Johnny. What the fuck's going on with Johnny?
You know, it's like, it kind of hurts. And it kind of, you lose that association, you know? And you're like, man, everyone's like talking about you. And they're like, yeah, Johnny's fucking huge, dude. Like, that guy's fucking jacked. He's crazy. It's insane. And then you walk in the room and everyone's like, what the fuck happened to this guy? It's weird. You create a energy, a commotion about who you are, your size, and all these things. And that's something a lot of people measure and they weigh when it comes to, hey, should I get off of steroids? Should I shrink down a little bit? And they stay on. I think it should really be embraced to do the opposite, because there is that sort of internal battle that a lot of people have that keeps them on. I think getting smaller is great. I think it has its perks. You can still be an elite physique. You just don't have to be elite amongst bodybuilders or elite amongst people abusing steroids. You can still be absolutely fucking yoked out of your goddamn mind. Everyone knows, if you ever stop by my Instagram, like, I'm shredded 99.9% of the time and I feel great, mostly because I abuse Monster and I drink, you know, these hydration drinks. By the way, plug Coach K, description offers a link. Great hydration drinks, clinically backed formula here, genuinely clinically backed, great mixture of electrolytes. But I feel great and I operate at a higher level now than I ever did before. So take it as you will, I guess. This has turned into a rant at the end of the day. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. If you're stuck being big and you don't know why you do this anymore, hey, probably invest some fucking time in getting smaller, because it might help you in the end of the day.